Here we have a Cadet Model 66 cabinet, and I've been asked by my friend John to make a video of my techniques on cabinet restoration, cabinet refinishing. And this cabinet isn't going to need a total refinish. I mean, the front, yes, there's some scratches and things, but we can take care of those and make it look decent. My theory on cabinet restoration is try to keep the original finish as much as possible. The top, however, that I'm going to refinish, and I'll be able to mask it off and get it very close to what the original finish was, but there's just too many scratches. So what I do to remove the finish, I use something called a cabinet scraper. Now I don't know if these are still available. They used to have them at Ace Hardware stores. It's just about an inch wide, and it has a blade that screws in here, and it's got actually two blades. You can flip this around and use each half. But basically you're just taking, you scrape the old finish off. Not easy to do one-handed because I'm holding the camera here, but and you just gotta hold it straight so you don't dig into it, and it works very good. So I'll pause the video and I'll finish scraping and show you the finished result. Okay, so I finished scraping. Took some fine emery paper, gave it a nice sanding with the grain. I always want to go with the grain. Got it nice and smooth. Now the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some, I think we have goop here, or it's Gojo. I have to look which one is sitting by the sink, but I'll bring the can in here. And I'll take some goop over this area of the original finish, clean it up and see what it looks like. A lot of times the goop itself will fill in some of these scratches. After that, we'll follow it up with some Howards. It is Gojo, and you want to go with the hand cleaner that's the original formula with no pumice. It's actually just a cream. And you take a little dollop in your hand and you wipe it into the wood like this. Get it in there real good. You don't need to go crazy with a big blob of it. A little dab will do you, and you'll see it all start coming off in your hands. And then once you get it thoroughly wiped, you take a clean paper towel and wipe it clean. You can start with a damp one to get the excess off, then go with a dry one. But so we'll do that and show you that result. And you can see how much grime came off of the cabinet just from wiping it down with the Gojo. That's representing about 85, close to 90 years of dirt that this thing accumulated. And you can see it did a pretty nice job of it. Filled in a lot of those scratches and things just from the hand cleaner. Another little tip I do when you have a black trim like this and you have a blemish in it, get yourself a Sharpie marker and color it in. So it's that simple. You really don't need to retone it. Just touch up the spots, and once you put the sanding sealer over it, and eventually your clear coat, you won't even be able to tell you did that. So up next, we're going to get some Howard's Restore Finish and give it a wipe down with that. So Howard's Restore Finish. You can buy this in many different flavors. They have golden oak, they have walnuts, all different wood types. And you can buy this at Amazon has it. You can buy it online, or if you have an Ace Hardware store, our local Ace store has this. And a can like this will last you a long time. They're a little bit pricey, probably about 15 bucks, something like that, but it'll last you a long time because you use it sparingly. You don't pour this on. You take some on a paper towel about the size of a silver dollar and wipe it into the wood, and then let it dry, and take a dry cloth and wipe it off again. So I will give you the before and after on that. I take a paper towel like this and I'll fold it in four so you have a little bit of thickness when you dab some on here so it doesn't soak through right away. There, that's looking really nice already, just from the Howards. All those fine scratches you saw, they're all filled in again. And as far as the amount of Howards that I used, this is it. This is it. And it actually, it's not a toner, but it blends in. It takes the old finish and it kind of dissolves it a bit, and you can work it into the scratches and problem areas, and that's what Howards is known for. And I always try and stay with a lighter shade. That's why I use golden oak, because I don't like darkening the wood any further than it is, because otherwise you get the cabinet's going to look way too dark. And which leads me to my next point. A lot of people, the next step they would do here is put grain filler in. I don't use grain filler. I know that's a cardinal sin with a lot of people, but I have found that I never had real good luck with it. Whatever shade of it I would use always made the wood a lot darker than it was, and when I tone it, even with lighter toner, the wood would look way too dark. You'd lose a lot of the grain pattern and things. And so I use sanding sealer. That's the next step. I'll give the whole cabinet a coat of 2 coats of sanding sealer, and I'll show you what that is. And there's 2 kinds of sanding sealer. I always use this Deft lacquer sanding sealer. It's just a spray. I think Deft got bought out now. I think the new brand is called Prolux. Same thing, just different name. And then I'll set this up and I'll spray it, give it 2 coats. Let the first coat dry and give it a second coat. And I'll show you how we sand it next. And I set myself up a little spray booth here, just some pieces of cardboard I make a little booth out of. And one thing that'll become in handy, and you don't have to get as extravagant as I just made this out of wood, get yourself a Lazy Susan, where you can put your cabinet on and rotate it around when you're spraying it. Grab the cabinet. That way when you spray it, you can hit all the sides without having to touch the wet cabinet. Works great. And always do this in a ventilated area, because this is lacquer and it'll smell pretty bad. But as you can see, this is just 1 coat. You can see that the sanding sealer, it's still wet, but it darkened the top. The top is almost the same shade as the rest of it now. So it won't take a lot of toning to get that to match. And the sanding sealer itself will fill in a lot of those grain pores. Once you sand it afterwards, it won't be anywhere near as rough as if you didn't use any sanding sealer, that's for sure. And all these tips that I'm giving you is just the way I do it. Don't take this as the gospel. This is how you have to do it. There's always more than one way to do things, and this just happens to be the way I do it. And if some of this stuff works for what you do, hey, great. You can also apply this to if you have antique furniture or something that needs refinishing. Some of these same techniques can be used for that. Now, when I get to the sanding portion of it, I get these 3M pads here. They're let's see, they're 4.5 by 5.5 by 3/16 thick. They get sponge. They give, and I'll get one that's a fine, and then I'll get a super fine, and that's what I use to sand the cabinet with. You can get these on Amazon too. Another important thing to use the sanding sealer for is, say on this cabinet that you had to refinish this darker area and you wanted to mask off all this other stuff around it so that you didn't get the rest of it too dark. Well, if you didn't have the sanding sealer on it, any old finish or something, if you put tape just on the bare wood, it's going to leave a mark. It's going to leave tape residue. With the sanding sealer, whenever you mask something off like that, you won't have that problem. It won't take the original finish off. If you have original finish like this that you want to maintain, it won't rip the finish off. And always use the blue painter's tape. That's what I use. And you should be able to do different color toning. You know, this is like an oak, and this is more of a maple, something like that. As you can see, after the second coat, this is virtually the same color. So I don't even think I'm going to do any toning to that. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. it matches the rest of the cabinet very nicely. And one thing I do have to do is I seen there was two little holes that I had filled up. There must have been a metal plate here with a logo on that's long gone, but I have a Cadet decal I'm going to put on there. I got that from Radio Days, from a different Cadet brand radio that I did, and we'll put that on after this. And actually, because the front and the sides were already the original finish, they are nice and smooth already. I don't have to do any sanding on there. You can actually see how shiny it is just with my hand in it. So I just have to sand this with the sanding pads. And another good thing with the sanding sealer on an original finish is once you have it looking decent, it locks it in. You know, it'll preserve that finish that you created with the Howards. And if you didn't do that, eventually it would dry back out again, and you'd have to apply another coat of that. There, and after you sand it with the two different sanding pads, you'll get a white powder that'll come off, and that's what you want. That's what smooths it out and gives you, this is actually very nice and smooth. It's almost like the sides are. If you look at it, you really can't see any deep grain grooves in it anymore. Sanding sealer did a good job of filling that in. And the white will disappear if you take a paper towel and wipe it off. The white will disappear once you hit it with your clear coat, or if you go with a little toner, it'll also take care of it. And to get rid of dust quickly, if you don't want to fire up your air compressor, just get yourself one of these compressed electronic cleaner air. They usually have them where the computers are, like at Walmart, for cleaning out your keyboards and stuff. It's expensive for a bottle of air, but it comes in handy. Okay, it's time to put the decal on. This little Cadet decal. I got it from a company called Radio Days. If you search for them on the internet, you'll be able to find decals for just about any radio you have. You always want to put your decal on before you put your clear coat on, so that it blends in. Otherwise, you'll see the outline of the decal all around the area. And you just soak it in the water and let it start to get loose, and carefully slide it on. And there's the decal, all nice and centered over the opening where it should be. Now the next and final step is putting a clear coat on it. And I use this stuff here. It's Ace Hardware brand premium clear finish, glossy enamel. That's important because it's enamel. Enamel will not attack your decals. If you go over decals with lacquered clear coat, sometimes they'll crinkle up and get real funny looking because the lacquer is actually attacking the decal material. This stuff won't. And you can put enamel over lacquer, just not the other way around. You can't put lacquer over enamel. So there's not a problem with putting this over lacquer toner. So I give it one coat of that and let it dry, and that'll be it. One thing I always do, if I have more than one can of the same item, I'll put an X on the cap so I know which one I started using already. And there it is, the finished product. I'll clear coat, and you can see that the top that we scraped just about perfectly matches the sides. It's a little hard to tell under the fluorescent lights here because makes it look green, but it's not. So that's, in a nutshell, how I finish cabinets. Toning is an art. There's the Mohawk toner, and I'll show you some of that real quick. So these are just some examples of Mohawk toners. They make all different colors. You know, I like to stay light walnut, colonial maple. They have extra dark walnut, dark walnut oak, all kinds of them. I buy these at a company called Klingspor, Klingspor woodworking shop. If you search for them on the internet, they have all the Mohawk products, fast service, and relatively cheap shipping cost, which is a big thing when you're sending products like this through the mail. You have to pay a fee because of the toxicity of them or whatever. And you also want to pick up something like this. It's called No Blush Retarder. They make a super blush and no blush. And if you get any runs in your cabinet or anything that doesn't look right, You can spray this on a paper towel. You can wipe off the original toner that you put on and start over again. And it works if you get some clouding going on. If you're doing this outside and there's humidity that gets into the lacquer toner, turns it cloudy, you give it a spray of that and it'll disappear. Toning is an art in itself, and obviously I'm holding the camera, I can't really demonstrate it, but you want to mist this stuff on. Real light mist coats, and then let it dry 10-15 minutes in between coats. Mist some more on until you get to the right darkness that you want. It's not like spray paint where you put it on thick. This you have to put on real light or it'll run, because this is real runny in there. And that can. It's just made to tint the wood, not to stain it. So there you are. Those are the products that I use, and as far as wood filler goes, that's another product I didn't show. I'll get that quick and show you what I use for that. And if you have cracks or anything like that, I use this stuff, DAP plastic wood. It comes in different assortments, golden oak, natural. If you have veneer pieces missing, you don't want to just fill it in with wood filler because it won't look right. If it's a real tiny little spot, that's fine, but if you have a big sliver out, you want to use some old pieces of veneer and cut it and glue it in there and sand it smooth, put some wood filler around the seams, and that's what I do there. And this same company that has the toner, Klingspor, they also have sheets of veneer if you need to buy some veneer. And that I put on with contact cement. This stuff right here, it's DAP Weldwood contact cement. I give it 2 coats, one on each surface. If I have to do a whole side of a cabinet, I'll put 2 coats on the piece of veneer and 2 coats on the cabinet, letting it dry between coats. And then you take a wood rolling pin, roll it on so you get it on there good and tight. And then you can sand it down, trim it to size. I always leave it a good 1/2 inch at least all the way around when I put a side on a cabinet, so that you have some leeway, because once you put the veneer down on top of this contact cement, you don't have room to change things. Once it's down, it's down. It's not going to move on you. So you got to put it where you want it the first time. So I hope if John is watching this gave him some ideas of what I use, and hopefully some other people will be able to benefit from this as well. So to borrow a phrase from John, until next time, this is Greg.